Hi guys, I'm Lauren. Today I'm going to tell you about how I got started in photography and how I went from this to, at its worst, this to this.
Don't know how much, you know I need you. I need your touch, you know I love you.
I went from buying my first DSLR in September 2018 to being completely hooked shortly afterwards, and that was about a year and a half ago. Let's rewind back to where it all started. I had left my job in the city in London in August 2018 and thought that I would take a break and then look for another job. What I did do though was reflect a lot, and the thought that I had was that I had always had creative hobbies and sidelines, and that now was maybe the time to do something more creative for more of my time. I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, and as I watched I became absolutely amazed by the vast amount of information on there on almost any subject you could imagine. And from there I started to get really fascinated by the challenge of making the videos themselves.
Have to find a better way. We can find a better way to prove it, prove it, prove it. It's a beautiful life. If you give it a chance, it can make you dance. It's a beautiful.
The trigger for me was that my daughter had needed some headshots for her DJ business, and on the day she was due to have them taken at the London Aquarium, the photographer that she had booked couldn't come along on that day. So I said, well, why don't you let me try? I'm very patient and I'll keep trying and trying until we get something that you're happy with. So because she had it planned anyway, we went along, and I used her mobile to take the photos, mine to give a bit of lighting, because by this time I knew from watching YouTube and making videos the value of good lighting. So we did that, and she got some she was happy with, and we went to the pub after for a drink. And it was while we were there and we were talking about everything, it suddenly clicked with me that I had really enjoyed the process of taking photos and that challenge of trying to get a good photo. So the very next day I looked up camera shops and went off and bought a camera and came home, started to research about it on YouTube again, and suddenly found out I had bought the wrong camera. So what I had come back with was a bridge camera with a long zoom lens, which was fine in itself. It was a great camera for certain purposes, but what I realised now that I needed was a DSLR. So next morning, back to the camera shop, they were very nice about it, explained that I'd bought the wrong thing and that I'd now done a bit of research, needed something else, needed a DSLR, and they showed me the Canon 200D, which I liked as soon as I saw it, and I still love that camera today. It's the camera I'm using for filming now, and it is such a great little workhorse. I absolutely love it. So now I had the right camera for me, but where was I going to start? Luckily, I was so enthusiastic that the best thing I did was just get out there and start shooting. I hadn't mastered exposure yet, so that was my first job. And I could say it's probably like learning to drive. At first, getting the three components of exposure all in line, the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO, and working all together just seemed like an impossible task, and I made so many mistakes. But just like learning to drive, I think practice makes perfect, and the more I practiced, eventually I was able to get to grips with that side of things. So you'll see, as you saw earlier, that some of my photos at first were coming out black, some were white, just couldn't get it right, but eventually that all came together. I was taking lots of photos and making lots of errors. So what I would do was, once I had made an error or something didn't come out the way I wanted it to, I would then look at YouTube videos, I would go on real life workshops, or I would consult the books I had bought on my camera to check where I had gone wrong and to work out how I could put it right in future. Also, I would just work by trial and error. If something didn't come out right on the screen, I would adjust my settings and try to get it as right as I could with the knowledge I had at that time. Some of the workshops I went to last year were about food photography, street photography, day and night, video capture, light painting, how to present on camera, how to make money from photography, portrait photography, a directing masterclass, and going on meetups with other photographers. Living in London is a fantastic asset because there's so much education and easy reach, but you can learn a lot anywhere by going out shooting with other photographers where you live, or by joining online groups and finding out how each other works. I joined Instagram in January last year and I started to follow photographers I admire, and this is something that just gives me so much pleasure and joy every single day. I follow a variety of different styles and here are some of their feeds. For each of these I've put their Instagram names below in the descriptions so that you can follow them as well if you like their work. There's Brendan McGee from Chicago, King A's from London, and Funky Side of Town from Tokyo. And here's my Instagram feed as well. If you'd like to follow me, I've put my Instagram name down below as well. In May last year, after my first paid shoot, I decided to go and buy the Canon 5D Mark IV, which was widely recommended. I absolutely have not been disappointed. This camera though, while being both a fantastically useful tool, is also, or has been, sometimes still is, a source of extreme frustration to me. There are so many different functions in it, and coming from recently being a beginner photographer, even the focus options within it were really baffling. But I have to say that if you work with this camera and get to grips with those functions, it really will pay you back 100%. Initially using it meant that my photos again got worse instead of better, and really I just had to then sit down again with the book I bought to go with it, go through all the functions and just really practice again shooting everything with it. I would sit indoors taking photos of the TV cabinet, trying the different focus options, different apertures. I would photograph my knee in close-up with different depth of fields. I would take photos of the clothes hanging on the clothes rack. So really that's how I had to sit down and get to grips with it. As everyone says, practice is the only thing that will make perfect in the end. At times I seriously doubted myself though, and there were times where I was just thinking, I'm never going to get to grips with this. But something was just compelling me to keep trying, try again, work out what's gone wrong, try to put it right. And that's been my ethos all the way through, and still is actually. Right from the start, I knew I wanted to get into the world of commercial photography. And so I took the plunge straight away with some photos for a startup food business, a distillery open day, and a theatre production. Each of these has spurred me to improve, because you then have to ask yourself, why would anyone buy my photos? I also submit photos and videos to an online stock site. And again, this speeds up my learning curve, because if it's not up to standard, they'll just reject it. It's a bit of an uncomfortable process, but I generally feel I need to feel some discomfort when I'm doing photography, and that discomfort for me comes from trying to learn something new and trying to progress technically and trying to progress artistically. So for me, that bit of discomfort is just inherent with trying to progress. And I think all photographers say, really, you never finish photography. It's just a lifelong process of learning and growing. So that's great. That's what I enjoy. One of the things I did very early on was to take a Photoshop course, and I absolutely love photo editing. Some of the possibilities are like magic tricks. They just make such a transformation. And the other good thing about the Photoshop course was that from learning that in a structured environment from a professional gave me enough confidence and enough sort of idea of how the process worked to then teach myself video editing. And that leads me on to my YouTube videos. For me, YouTube videos are the ultimate challenge because I have to learn to speak to camera, which sometimes I find very difficult, to take decent photos that will stand up to being on a big screen when they go on TV, also to mastering sound, to taking good recordings, to finding the right music for a video. So altogether, I really enjoy making YouTube videos, but also they are my biggest challenge. I really enjoy the fact that through my YouTube videos, I'm exploring parts of London and other places in a much more in-depth way than I would do otherwise. And I just get to meet really interesting people. When you're out and about with a camera, I've found, people want to chat, they want to find out what you're doing, they want to offer their tips for places you could try, and it just opens up a whole other world really. Since in London at the moment we're on coronavirus lockdown, this seemed a good time to make this video. And also it's good for me to reflect back on the past year. So it's a year really dedicating myself to photography, but a year and a half of my life really on this photography journey. And the things I've learned along the way have been really helpful, I would say, in all aspects of my life. Have I made lots of mistakes along the way? Definitely, tons of them. But have I regretted anything? No, not at all. It's probably one of the best things that I've done. I'm really excited to see where my second year is going to take me. I don't have any concrete plans. I have some vague plans. There are some things that I have in mind that I'd like to achieve. So if you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to join me on that journey, either because you're interested in photography yourself or you just want to see me out and about in my travels, then go ahead and subscribe, and I look forward to many more of these videos over the coming year. Stay safe.